The hidden truth of Ip Man and Bruce Lee. Before his death, Ip Man finally admitted why he had stopped teaching Bruce Lee, revealing a truth far more complex than what Hollywood has ever shown. For years, the world celebrated the legendary bond between these martial arts icons, with movies showing a young Bruce Lee training in a secret temple under the tutelage of an enlightened master. However, the reality involved deep cultural tensions, fierce rivalries, and the harsh conditions of Hong Kong in the 1950s that eventually created a gap between them. In this video, we demystify the legends to reveal how old prejudices, jealous classmates, and the pressure to preserve Wing Chun pushed Ip Man to make this difficult decision. Join us to discover the untold story behind this decisive moment and ask yourself, what would have happened if Bruce had completed his traditional training? How Bruce Lee joined Ip Man's classes? Bruce Lee met Ip Man for the first time in the early 1950s when he was about 15 years old. At the time, Bruce was not yet the disciplined martial arts practitioner the world would later know. He was simply a teenager immersed in the tumultuous street life of Hong Kong, where gang fights and urban violence were part of his daily routine. Leading a gang nicknamed the Eight Tigers of Junction Street, Bruce had built a reputation as a competent street fighter, although his techniques were still raw and unrefined. This harsh environment pushed him to seek a way to improve his fighting skills, and this quest led him to Kung Fu, breaking traditional barriers. His first approach to Kung Fu was not through formal training, but rather by watching others fight and experimenting with techniques on his own. One of his closest friends, Chun, was already learning Wing Chun from the famous Grandmaster Ip Man. Recognizing Bruce's fighting spirit and natural talent, Chun offered to introduce him to his teacher. This meeting would change Bruce Lee's life. However, there was an initial complication. Bruce's mother had European origins, and some saw him as an outsider in the traditional world of Chinese martial arts. At the time, there was a long-standing rule prohibiting teaching non-Chinese students. Several of Ip Man's senior students opposed Bruce's admission to the school. Chun, convinced of Bruce's potential, vouched for him. Thanks to this intervention, Bruce was finally accepted into Ip Man's Wing Chun school, the foundation of a legend. However, Bruce's training did not begin as he had imagined. Instead of immediately learning complex moves or fighting techniques, he was tasked with practicing a single posture for several days. This was particularly frustrating for Bruce, who hoped to quickly acquire techniques applicable to street fights. He complained to his father about this seemingly useless exercise, but nothing changed. Despite his frustration, he continued to show up for class and tirelessly repeat this posture. Ip Man's approach was deliberate. His philosophy emphasized the importance of building a solid foundation before moving on to more elaborate techniques. By forcing Bruce to focus solely on perfecting this posture, Ip Man instilled in him the precision, balance, and structure that would become essential to his future mastery of martial arts. At the time, Bruce found this training tedious, but in retrospect, it laid the foundations for his later innovations. The influence of Wang Shunlung Ip Man himself rarely taught all his students directly. He reserved personal instruction for those he judged particularly promising or devoted. In Bruce's case, much of the daily teaching was provided by Wang Shunlung, one of Ip Man's most reliable senior students. Wang was renowned for his pragmatic approach to Wing Chun, shaped by his own experiences in real combat. Under his guidance, Bruce's skills improved rapidly. Wang's emphasis on efficiency and adaptability in real fights echoed Bruce's experience in street brawls. As he progressed, Ip Man began to take a personal interest in his development. The Grandmaster recognized Bruce's talent and enthusiasm for learning. Beyond physical techniques, Ip Man introduced him to the deep philosophy of Kung Fu, the importance of fluidity, adaptability, and understanding one's opponent. This philosophical base would later influence many of Bruce's famous ideas, including his famous maxim, "Be like water." The birth of Jeet Kune. Due the period during which Bruce trained under the direction of Ip Man and Wang Shunlung took place alongside his studies at St. Francis, where he was mentored by brother Edward Moose, who also coached the school's boxing team. This period was crucial for forging his global vision of combat. While Wing Chun offered him a structured martial arts system, his experiences in boxing allowed him to discover Western punching techniques and movements. This blend of influences sowed the seeds for Bruce's later development of his own philosophy, Jeet Kune. The years spent under Ip Man's tutelage were transformative. Bruce arrived at the school as a raw, self-taught street fighter whose techniques relied on instinct and aggressiveness. Thanks to the patient and structured training provided by Ip Man, this aggressiveness was refined into control, precision, and efficiency. This transformation was as much physical as it was mental. Bruce began to perceive combat not only as a physical conflict, but as a dynamic interaction requiring both technique and adaptability. Internal conflicts and jealousy. Why did Ip Man stop teaching Bruce Lee? The environment of Ip Man's school was demanding not only because of the training methods, but also because of internal conflicts among the students. Bruce's natural ability allowed him to quickly surpass many of his peers, thus intensifying their resentment. The jealousy was deep, and his mixed origins further fueled the discontent. Many traditionalists within the school felt that Chinese martial arts should be reserved exclusively for people of pure Chinese descent. This prejudice provided a convenient justification for his detractors, and despite Ip Man's personal acceptance of Bruce's talent, the growing opposition within the school could not be ignored. As Bruce's skills improved under the direction of Ip Man and his senior student Wang Shunleung, external pressure on the Grandmaster increased. In the conservative martial arts community of Hong Kong, traditions were fiercely defended. The idea of teaching Chinese martial arts to a person of mixed origins sparked controversy. The weight of tradition and health. Furthermore, Bruce's reputation as a sharp street fighter, honed in the violent alleys of Hong Kong and reinforced by his successes in unofficial fights, exacerbated the situation. His rebellious nature and rapid rise in martial arts made him a lightning rod for critics. His classmates and established practitioners all saw him as a threat to the well-anchored customs and hierarchies of Wing Chun. In the late 1950s, several factors combined to create an untenable situation for Ip Man. His own health was deteriorating. Years of opium consumption had taken their toll, and he suffered from throat cancer. Teaching was becoming increasingly difficult for the aging Grandmaster, who had spent decades perfecting the art of Wing Chun. At the same time, pressure from the traditional martial arts community was growing stronger. Critics argued that Ip Man was compromising the integrity of his teachings by associating with a student who did not respect the community's standards. As a senior member of the school reportedly stated, "Teaching Bruce is like opening the door to everything that is not intended for our art, a difficult separation." Although Ip Man never publicly endorsed such remarks, the sentiment was omnipresent. Faced with these growing challenges, Ip Man made a difficult decision. Rather than completely excluding Bruce, a measure that could have further tarnished his reputation, Ip Man chose to distance himself by ceasing to offer him direct instruction. He thus arranged for the continuation of his training exclusively under the direction of Wang Shunleung. This decision made Bruce an outcast within the main school, confining him to a separate training environment. This compromise allowed Ip Man to protect both his personal legacy and the sanctity of his martial tradition. In doing so, he ensured that the controversies surrounding Bruce's presence did not compromise the overall reputation of his Wing Chun lineage. For decades, the true reasons that had pushed Ip Man to stop teaching Bruce remained the subject of speculation. Many assumed that Bruce's arrogance and rebellious behavior were the main causes. However, the full story was much more complex and in many ways tragic. The final revelation shortly before his death in 1972, Ip Man revealed the truth. The growing pressure from the traditional martial arts community, combined with my declining health, left me no choice but to withdraw from Bruce's direct training. These words clarified that it was not solely Bruce's behavior that had motivated this decision, but a combination of external pressures and personal limits. Deeply rooted prejudices against Bruce's mixed origins also played a role, as many conservative students felt that Chinese martial arts should not be shared with people of non-Chinese origin. After this period, Bruce's life took another dramatic turn. In 1959, following a series of violent incidents, including a particularly serious altercation involving the son of a powerful triad member, his parents decided that his safety in Hong Kong could no longer be guaranteed. They sent him to the United States, where he would start from scratch in Seattle. Arriving with few means, only $100 and a few contacts, Bruce was forced to reinvent himself, starting over in America. In the United States, he began by working small jobs and pursued philosophy studies at the University of Washington. At the same time, he built a reputation as a formidable fighter, participating in boxing matches and underground martial arts competitions. The break with Ip Man's formal training did not end Bruce's commitment to martial arts. It only redirected his trajectory. In Seattle, Bruce eventually opened his own school, the Chun Fan Kung Fu Institute. This institution broke with tradition in many ways. Unlike the exclusive and racially homogeneous martial arts schools of Hong Kong, Bruce's school welcomed students of all backgrounds. His inclusive approach was perceived as a direct challenge to the established order and further fueled the controversy surrounding his methods. By redefining his art under the name Jeet Kune, or the way of the intercepting fist, Bruce sought to eliminate what he considered superfluous traditions to create a system based solely on efficiency and practicality in real combat. Ip Man's distancing from Bruce was not intended to punish him, but to protect the reputation of his martial arts school. The relentless pressure from traditionalists, combined with his deteriorating health, made it impossible for him to continue providing direct instruction without risking the dilution of his legacy. The origins of the Grandmaster Ip Man, the Wing Chun master who shaped Bruce Lee's legacy. So who really was Ip Man to have exerted such a profound influence on Bruce Lee? Born in 1893 in Foshan, Guangdong, Ip Man, originally Ip Kai Man, grew up in a wealthy family that valued education and traditional Chinese culture. The third of four siblings, he was introduced to the discipline of martial arts at a very young age. He began studying Wing Chun under the direction of Chun, a respected master of the art. Some sources claim Ip Man began his training at age 9, while others suggest he started at 13. Regardless, his determination to master Wing Chun was evident from the start. Chun, then 57 years old, took Ip as his 16th student. However, his teaching was interrupted after only 3 years due to a mild stroke in 1909, forcing him to retire. During his formative years, Ip Man absorbed much of his training from Chun's second most experienced student, Chung Sok, which laid the essential foundations for his future expertise. Lessons from Lung Bik. In his 20s, Ip Man had already reached a level of skill allowing him to teach others. Although he had not yet established an official school, he worked as a police officer in Foshan for the nationalist government, a position that provided him with both a stable income and the opportunity to apply his martial skills to maintain public order. His reputation as a competent and disciplined practitioner grew steadily, even as his career as a martial artist was only beginning to take shape. At 16, helped by his cousin Lung Fut Ting, Ip Man moved to Hong Kong. There he enrolled at St. Stephen's College, an establishment for wealthy families and expatriates. This experience broadened his horizons and confronted him with new ideas far beyond his native Foshan. Shortly after his arrival, a classmate named Lai informed him of an exhibition challenge organized by a friend of Lai's father. The challenge came from Lung Bik, the son of Lung Zhan, who had been Chun Huaxun's teacher. Ip Man accepted the duel with enthusiasm. However, Lung Bik's speed and skill quickly surpassed him. After 2 fights in which Ip was defeated, he felt embarrassed and discouraged and initially left without comment. The Foshan years and family. A week later, Lai explained that Leung Bik had actually praised Ip Man's technique and highlighted his family connection to Leung Zhan. This feedback motivated Ip Man, who began training under Leung Bik's direction until the latter's death in 1911. These years of rigorous training were essential for refining his skills and deepening his understanding of Wing Chun. In 1916, at the age of 24, Ip Man returned to Foshan and resumed his career as a police officer. During this period, he began teaching Wing Chun to his friends, subordinates, and family members. Although he never established an official martial arts school in Foshan, his classes enjoyed an excellent reputation. His first students, including Lok Yu, Chao Kwong Yue, Kwok Fu, Lun Kai, Chan Chi Sun, and Louis Ying, subsequently contributed to the spread of Wing Chun in Foshan and throughout the Guangdong region. Some of them even emigrated to Hong Kong, although not all embarked on a teaching career. Ip Man married Chung Wing Sing, and together they had several children, including Ip Chun and Ip Ching. War, politics, and exile. However, his personal life was not without difficulty. The tumultuous political climate of early 20th century China began to affect him. During the Sino-Japanese War, Ip Man took the side of the Kuomintang. Rumors circulate that he joined the Central Bureau of Investigation and Statistics in Guizhou in 1938, and then returned to Foshan as an undercover intelligence agent. Although the details remain controversial, what is certain is that he spent some time at his student Kwok Fu's home during the conflict before returning to Foshan when hostilities ended. After the war, Ip Man served for several years as a captain of the Foshan police patrols, and in 1949 he even trained his second son, Ip Ching, demonstrating his commitment to transmitting Wing Chun. However, with the victory of the Chinese Communist Party in the Civil War at the end of 1949, the political situation changed radically. Due to his ties with the Kuomintang, Ip Man, his wife, and their eldest daughter left Foshan for Hong Kong via Macau in 1950. This was a major turning point in his life. Hardships in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, Ip Man's experience was radically different from the relative stability he knew in Foshan. At 56, he struggled to find work. His experience as a police officer did not easily transfer to this new environment. With the help of friends, he obtained a job in a restaurant and built connections through the Hong Kong Restaurant Workers Association. During this period, Ip Man developed an addiction to opium, which worsened his financial difficulties. To support both his addiction and his family's needs, he began teaching Wing Chun more openly in the early 1950s. His first students were mainly impoverished members of the Restaurant Workers Association and troubled young men from the streets, people he hoped to steer away from gang violence. Although many stayed only briefly, some eventually acquired enough skill to open their own schools, thus contributing to the spread of Wing Chun in Hong Kong. In the mid-1950s, Ip Man's personal life became even more complicated when he began an extramarital affair with a woman known simply as Shanghai Po. This relationship gave birth to a son, Ip Shu Hua, the Wing Chun legacy. In 1960, his wife Chun died of cancer, and subsequently, his sons joined him in Hong Kong. Throughout the 1960s, Ip Man's reputation improved, attracting wealthier and better educated students. In 1967, he and several of his students created the Wing Chun Athletic Association to help alleviate his financial difficulties. A measure that former student Duncan Leung later summarized by stating, "Ip used the tuition money to support his opium addiction." Ip Man's influence went far beyond his personal difficulties. Among his notable students were Chu Shongtin, Lok Yu, Wang Shunlong, and Bruce Lee. The latter in particular credited Ip Man with teaching the art of detachment and instilling a deep understanding of Kung Fu. Bruce's famous maxim, "Be like water," reflects the fundamental principles of simplicity, directness, and adaptability he had learned from Ip Man. Ip Man passed away on December 2nd in 1972 in his home at 149 Tung Choi Street in Hong Kong. Succumbing to laryngeal cancer only 7 months before Bruce Lee, he was buried at Wo Hop Shek in Hong Kong. The final meeting and eternal bond today, the Ip Man Museum, located on the grounds of the Foshan Ancestral Temple, preserves many artifacts from his life, and his legacy continues to inspire martial artists worldwide. Ip Man's journey, from his beginnings in Foshan through his later struggles and final success in Hong Kong, testifies to the enduring power of disciplined martial training and the profound influence a dedicated teacher can have on future generations. Before his death, Ip Man finally revealed why he had stopped teaching Bruce Lee. During a final moving meeting in Hong Kong, a weakened Ip Man, sketching a slight smile, answered Bruce's sincere question, "Do you still consider me your student?" This moment summarized the deep bond between the master and his student, a bond shaped by tradition, personal trials, and the need to preserve the integrity of Wing Chun. Although his decision to distance himself was not a rejection, but a difficult choice dictated by immense pressure and health problems, it leads us to wonder, what if Bruce had finished his traditional training? Would he have revolutionized martial arts in the same way? Share your thoughts below and join us as we continue to explore the legends behind these iconic figures. If this story changed the way you look at the legends of the past, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the history they tried to bury. Plant the seeds of the future. The next treasure will be opened soon.